From being thrashed mercilessly to a player's nudes being circulated by an angry ex-girlfriend, these are 15 most embarrassing moments in football. Diana Ross comes in first, and while she's one of the best vocalists on the planet, she certainly knows nothing about kicking a football. She proved this when she was invited to bless the world with her angelic voice at the opening ceremony of the USA 1994 World Cup. She did just that, as she had the entire stadium grooving to her music. But trust Americans to make everything too Hollywoodish. Can you imagine asking Miss Ross to kick the ball into an empty net, all for the sake of entertainment? Yeah, the ball was just 5 yards away from the goal, so it wasn't such a difficult task. But Diana's embarrassing technique proved that the task was tougher than we all thought. For her, anyway. Next up is the silly rant by ex-Newcastle boss Kevin Keegan. The man who's usually on the tough side of things once got a bit too emotional when being interviewed by a reporter, and you can blame Fergie for that. Yeah, Keegan's uncontrollable emotions were as a result of something Sir Alex Ferguson said a few weeks before, which insinuated that teams playing against Manchester United always tried harder. Big Kev didn't agree with this, and he got far too emotional for the liking of the Newcastle fans when being asked about the matter during an interview. Have you guys ever heard of Fahad Khalfan? I guess not, but there's no way we're doing this video without talking about his legendary blooper. Khalfan was just 19 years of age when he won his second cap for Qatar, and in one particular match, his team were tied at 0-0 with not much time left to play. That was when Khalfan produced one of the greatest misses in the history of football. He was right in front of the goal. The ball was mere centimeters from the goal line, and his own shadow wasn't even marking him. But somehow he missed. With such horrific finishing, it came as no surprise when Khalfan was dropped from the squad. He's never played for Qatar since then. Now, Khalfan's blunder might have been bad, but not as bad as what Alexis Sanchez did to Arsenal and all the Gunners around the world. I mean, getting thrashed by Bayern Munich in the Champions League is embarrassing enough, but for Sanchez, who was an Arsenal player at the time, to laugh at his team's disastrous scoreline set all kinds of low standards for what player loyalty should be. Oh, and what were the scores again? As you dig into your archives, let's move on to the moment where Shay Given showed us he was only human. Now, Given is one of the best keepers to have played in the Premier League, but fumbling a straightforward cross and letting Dion Dublin celebrate a cheap goal did nothing for his reputation. Goran Rubil comes in next, and his own goal while playing for a Hajduk Split has to be one of the most embarrassing of all time. To rub salt deep into the injury, his moment of calamity came against his club's most hated rivals, Lokomotiva. If only he could produce such a sweet finish at the right end of the pitch. Well, he subscribed to Footyscape, so what's the fuss? And I know you want to click that subscribe button, buddy, so what are you waiting for? Speaking of sweets, no country in the 1966 World Cup would have felt greater joy than North Korea. Why? Well, because they handed Italy the most embarrassing loss in their footballing history, which booted them out from the group stages. At this time, there had only been 7 World Cups, and Italy had won 2 of them. That made them favorites against Korea, who were appearing in the tournament for the very first time. This loss was so embarrassing that the Italian players had rotten tomatoes and eggs thrown at them by their home fans when they returned back to Italy. Interestingly, the match against Italy was North Korea's only win in the competition, but that was the win that helped them advance to the next round. But hey, if we're gonna talk about Italy's World Cup embarrassment, then we'll have to talk about France too, who fumbled badly in not 1, but 2 major World Cups. The first was in 2002, when they lost their very first match to a lowly ranked Senegal and failed to make it past the group stages. The second was in 2010, where after only qualifying via a criminal handball play by Thierry Henry, were a total disaster all through the competition. The French team was loaded with star players, yet they couldn't win a single match. Even worse, they lost to a team as weak as South Africa. But the French boys didn't stop embarrassing themselves just yet. that, as they also argued like children among themselves and even boycotted training. Let's just say the 2010 World Cup is one France would like to forget. One thing we can't forget, though, is the Richard Keys and Andy Gray saga, which involved their off-screen chats that were leaked to the media. The respected media personalities didn't see this one coming, and neither did we, as their chats were filled with sexist remarks and a lot of disrespect for women.
Well, somebody better get down there and explain offside to her.
Yeah, I know. You leave that. Female license. That's exactly what I said. Women don't know the offside rule.
Of course they don't. I can guarantee you there'll be a big one today. Kenny will go potty. This is not the first time, is it? Didn't we have one before?
Yeah.
As you would expect, Keys and Gray were bashed mercilessly by the public and other members of the media for their insensitive comments. Sky Sports wasted no time dumping the disgraced presenters after that. And now let's move on to something more interesting. And it doesn't get any more embarrassing than Ashley Cole's naked pictures, which were leaked by a glamour model who was rumored to be a side chick. She didn't stop there, though, as she also leaked a bunch of raunchy messages they had exchanged in the past. Ashley, who already wasn't well liked by the English fans, first denied it all, but after more evidence surfaced, he had no choice but to admit it. How embarrassing! Safe to say, his wife at the time, Cheryl Cole, was so embarrassed by this that she was forced to file for a divorce. Another Premier League player that knows a thing or two about having extramarital flings is Ryan Giggs. Yes, Giggs, the well-respected Manchester United legend. Towards the end of his very illustrious career, the man who we all loved and adored found himself in the middle of a media circus which revolved around an affair he was having with some mystery lady. In a bid to keep his affair from going public, he filed an injunction against the newspaper that intended to publish it. But before you could say Jack Robinson, the story was all over the place. The lady he was having an affair with was Imogen Thomas, who was a former Miss Wales. Giggs was so embarrassed by this that he went into hiding all through the summer. As for Ian Wright, well, we never caught him being promiscuous, but his pop single was just as embarrassing as any fling you can think of. The Arsenal legend was one of the best at the time, but with his feet, not his vocals, as we would later discover when he released his first single in 1993, titled Do the Right Thing. The song was far from a success, as it could only peak at number 43 in the UK charts, and the sooner Wright figured out that no one wanted to hear his crappy song, he took his footballing more seriously. Now, look how far that got him. Speaking of far, John Terry didn't run far enough before his hilarious slip against Manchester United in the 2008 Champions League final. As embarrassing as this moment was for the Chelsea captain, we really can't blame him for it. The game was tied at halftime, full time, and at the end of extra time, so it had to go to penalties. Unfortunately, Drogba had slapped Nemanja Vidic across the face and had been sent off, which meant John Terry had to take his kick. Up stepped Terry, and as he ran to take his kick, the melted Russian ice under the grass caused him to slip, strike, miss, and fall on his bum. That's never a good look for Terry. Moving on to number 2, and if you've ever seen the meme, I hate to be an Arsenal fan right now, it's just someone poking fun at the Gunners for being thrashed 8-2 by their Premier League rivals, Manchester United. This was the first match between the two teams in the 2011-2012 season, and it's one Arsenal fans don't like discussing. It was their biggest defeat since 1927, which at the time was a whole 84 years ago. Now, if you think the Arsenal fans were embarrassed by such a horrendous scoreline, how do you think Brazil fans felt after they were brutalized 7-1 by Germany? This embarrassing moment came in the 2014 World Cup semifinal, and Brazil, who were beaten so rudely, were the host. Signs of bad things to come were obvious within the first 29 minutes, as Germany were already ahead by 5 goals to nothing. The second half came, and with Germany still feeling it, they added 2 more goals to make things more embarrassing for the South Americans. Even Oscar's consolation goal did nothing to wipe the shame away. If you can think of any football moment more embarrassing than the ones we've talked about, then you want to check out this video of football's 100% luck moments.